Hi, this is Mark. In this video, I'm going to talk about introverted intuition, what it means to me. I tend to differentiate it, and of course, with introverted sensing, and that with introverted intuition, it's just a way of channeling energy, and you can think of it like you're gathering. Of course, it's attached to extrovert sensing, so you're gathering sensory input. There's always bits of information. But because the mind is so open to the evolution of information and trying to build the bridges and the connections between these links or, chains, and try to pull it all together and funnel it into an insight or, revelation, aha moment, or, something that, or like a projection. And the projection doesn't necessarily have to be like a prediction. The projection is like you're kind of making a projection of all these events that you can kind of like if you take like a timeline, we typically have all the event frames that are from the present moment, and then they keep extending. The present moment is at end limits. But with introverted intuition, the projection is somehow they're taking that timeline and they're extending it to some point in the future. And essentially, of course, the stronger the intuitions, it seems more clear. So these event frames, you add bits of information into it and organize bits of information such that it becomes almost like a clear picture. And that's why with it's associated with imagery. And it's associated with all these symbolism and meaning and all, because they always find ways to try to connect patterns, and that's why with the evolution of information, that essentially what I think happens is, it tends to build up like bits. Think of information initially, I can think of it as like chaos, right? So you have multiple different bits funneling in, and they have to be. When you want to build a strong link, there's a force like that kind of binds these bits together. And with the introverted intuition, it has a strength, like a strong binding force. So it pulls these details together, and you may not they not even be aware of what's being pulled in, of course, in the moment, but it's still soaking in, and then it reaches this point of saturation where it's like. And with introverted intuition, everyone has intuition, by the way. But when it's a stronger function, what it means is that the binding forces are stronger, and then it reaches that limit at a higher, more frequent. It's more recurrent. So that's why with these aha moments or insights or instantaneous revelations, they can happen at more higher frequency because the connections are the mind is trying to pull it together inwardly, and that's why with introversion you're going inwardly, and that's why it can be very difficult to express these ideas, because it's like if you think of mathematically, it's like a function. The function has a three-dimensional function. It's composed of all the different nodes, and the nodes are pulled together with such density, but the individual nodes, you don't know where it came from, because it comprises this whole function. So to me, that's like introverted intuition, and like with introverted sensing, it's more of like, you're taking the details from experience and you're condensing it into this repository, of information that can be utilized as a guidance, to direct you in life in a certain way. So really, it's kind of like a direction. They're soaking in the impression of the individual event frames and essentially pulling that together, and all the details, because that is important. It's important for them to have the routines and function, in the world, so it's kind of where the energy is channeled, and that's kind of where your mind, whatever the framework that resides in the mind, it's kind of where the information gets compartmentalized. And of course, with everyone, it's going to be different how we store memory. And everyone has intuition as well. So it's just with these functions and the behavior and care, it's based on the preference, and the preference is proportional. I like to think of to reward feedback, because essentially, and of course, strengths, and that's why like we divert to a certain area or domain because it kind of aligns with the framework of our mind, but not always. But generally, of course, someone with introvert intuition kind of seems like they're almost floating through life because they kind of already have this, I guess, vision, and they're able to extend that time frame and build like event frames or hypothetical event frames in the future that seem clear, and that kind of like makes it seem like when the events do transpire, there's a lot of overlap between that, and therefore it becomes clearer and uh, more seems like it's like they're floating through it. But yeah, that's just my interpretation, and hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.